Is Dean no longer helping you?
Just hold on, hold on.
Okay, you did it.
Got it.
So I actually, I just want to say something before I bring the other screen on, which is that next week we have a holiday.
Right.
Right.
Today we have George 1 and George 2. And in 2 weeks, the 12th of April, we have George 3 and George 4.
Right.
Okay, so originally I only had 3 Georges, 1, 2, and 3. But then I couldn't figure out what to do with the last class. So I added one more, George. So the last class you will present, okay? So if you're thinking of that in terms of the class tonight we're going to deal with George de la Tour and George Tooker. So I thought those two had an interesting commonality, and let's see how that develops. So let me see if I could change the screen. Yeah. Okay.
Did.
Ah. Hold on, hold on. Hey, Renee? Renee? I can't do something. Could you help me? I can't get that screen on here. There's no pictures here.
What? Where's the screen?
There.
Can you see the screen, everybody?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
There are pictures to the
So
left,
sorry.
Yes.
on the
Sorry.
left side.
Okay. So this is an introduction I prepared for George de la Tour. So George de la Tour, his dates, he is French. His dates are 1593 to 1652. So although George de la Tour is French, he somehow doesn't seem French, and he falls out of time. He seems outside of time and outside of his home country, in my opinion. His work has a modern side to it, even modernist side to it, well before modernism. His art is highly human, but incredibly pared down and austere. And the key underpinning of his art is abstraction. Everything in his art is reduced to an essence. I don't know how he does this. Something in his brain or eye gets him to see the essence of the form, the essentialness of the form. The compositions are quite striking, and the use of space and light. The light glows with an otherworldly intensity. Now, in his case, I would like to know much more about him. I'd like to know who commissioned these works. Were they done for royalty or for the church? Where he worked and studied. So these are art historical ideas that I am not equipped to speak about. And I wish I knew more about him. I have a hunch that not a great deal is known about him, but those are the questions I would have. His work clearly has the buzz, the intensity of what I look for in art. With George de la Tour, for this artist, love at first sight. So this is a whole sampling of George de la Tour. Suppose I free associate about these for, say, 10, 12 pictures, and then I'll ask you to come in if you have a question or comment or whatever.
Do you have a split screen? Because I don't have that on my display.
What's that?
I do not have a split screen with any images of Delatour.
Well, I'm
No,
gonna
it's
put,
not
I'm
on
gonna
yet.
put the image on. I'm gonna put it on.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Do you see it now?
No.
No, oh, yes,
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
it's, yeah, see it.
yes.
Ron,
Some
Ron, do you see it
some
now?
Don't.
You should click
The
uh,
view-
share screen.
share screen.
Wow.
Where do we find that?
It's at the top.
I don't think that he wants to share his screen. I think that if you go to view,
Oh, view.
if you
I see it.
Yeah,
side by side gallery,
Oh, no, I see one amazing image of a woman looking at a candle in the
yeah,
middle.
that's it.
I don't
That's it.
That's
You
it.
don't see that?
Yeah,
see. I can get speaker view here with a.
do you
Do you
have an
see
option
something?
side by side
Ron, do you
gallery?
see? Ron, do you see something on the top that says slideshow?
No.
No,
No,
that,
no, no. How about side by side gallery?
It doesn't seem to have that option, just speaker and gallery.
are you in view options, Ron?
Yeah. I have speaker, gallery, hide self view, hide non-video, and full screen.
Full screen?
It doesn't do it. Well, go ahead. I don't.
Why don't you turn it off and turn it on and see what happens?
You want fit to window, zoom ratio fit to window.
All right, I'd like to just keep going. but-
Going, yeah.
Don't
Okay.
worry about it.
So let me just try something. I'm going to put this in slideshow and see what happens. Oh yeah, this is good. This is good. Okay.
I see the word
So
loading.
Just says
I don't-
loading.
all right.
Just
So this
loading.
3 dots after it.
yeah, that's what's
Right.
there.
could you just
The graphic designer in me.
could you just mute Peter? Could you mute
In other words, I should shut the hell up.
Peter? Peter. Hello, Peter. Could you mute yourself, or many of you mute yourself?
I muted. I just muted. I'm muting again.
Okay.
Is there a reason we changed this? Because I was seeing the images before.
Yes, I know. I'm trying to go back.
Oh, okay.
Hold on a second. I went on to, somehow it went to this, and I can't move it. Oh, here we go. Okay, all right. So, okay, so let me just go one more. Okay. So this is a painting which is typical George de la Tour. And,
Simon,
We're not getting it.
mine still says loading.
As
Yeah.
does mine.
Yeah.
And mine also.
Me
We're
too.
not seeing the image.
No image.
Me too, no image.
No image.
Your screen image is
Simon, try hitting your escape key.
escape. Hit the escape key. The escape key.
No.
Or maybe the.
There you go.
Okay,
that was
there you
last
go.
week.
That's Soutine.
Yeah.
But we're on the right page.
What page do you have to go to, Simon?
We have
just-
Soutine here.
This one, that one.
There you go.
There you go.
Can you see it?
Okay.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, let's just start with this. So this is very typical George de la Tour.
Very modern.
And so you could see how pared down this image is and how well composed it is. And the shapes are incredibly simple and, to my mind, very abstracted in terms of the form. The colors are on the warm side, but the shapes are very distilled down to some essential kind of form. Okay, so again, a similar motif in this. Quite a number of his images have candles, objects lit, and reflections in them. So I would say that these paintings are like 3/4 life size. So if you look at the way the cloth is delineated, the faces, the baby, the hand, everything is incredibly simple, but a simplicity that underlines a lot of complexity. And the way the images are composed is very striking. The way they occupy a rectangle, the shapes that they have, and the shapes of the space around them is very interesting. He does two scenes which involve card players or pickpockets, and I'm not totally sure about the subject matter. I'm not totally convinced of the subject matter, but the faces and the shapes are so interesting. From the woman on the far right to the woman next to her to the man. This is a very pared down sense of reality. And after I put together this group of images, I then put together a group of details of parts of these paintings. And I believe I have one of the details is the woman who is the second from the right, a very strong close-up of her head. So again, I think this is maybe 2/3 life size, maybe 2/3 or a little less, but right around there.
These are card players.
This is
So the way this type of form runs, he would be a very strong representative of a formalist direction in fine art. So that kind of formalism would go from Piero della Francesca to an artist like Ingres.
Hmm.
He's like a representative of that school of art.
What is a formalist?
Bronzino would be another example of that.
Can you define formalist, please?
Formal meaning that what?
Say formalist.
Formalist means that it is very shape oriented. In other words, the shapes have a timelessness about them, an essentialness about them that is more important than the feeling of the time of day, incidental things. It's a very abstract way of working.
I don't know.
For instance, in this next picture, this is really stunning in terms of a pared down sense of reality. Something about this painting makes me think of the French artist Balthus. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the pose at the very bottom. The light is very warm and full kind of light. And yet it's very mysterious and mystical kind of image.
Simon, I think of Caravaggio in these,
Yes, yes.
but not in those
Caravaggio would
other
be-
two images.
Yes, I agree totally. Caravaggio would be a very good example for this. Yeah, a very good cousin or brother or great connection.
Except these are a lot simpler, I think, in the way you were talking about it, Simon, in terms of the shape and the form, but the drama and the light and the color, yeah, I get Caravaggio too.
Yeah. He sort of stands out of his time and doesn't fit in with anything. I think I'm okay. In other words, in sort of the way that Vermeer stands out, or Piero della Francesca stands out. There's something about his work that stands out or falls out of historical time. Here's another one.
Wow.
And this was the late 1500s.
Late 1500s. The dates are 1593 to
So it would be early
1652.
So 1620 is that?
So like 100 years after Caravaggio or so, about something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
This is very modern.
Yeah, I feel it's very modern. That's what one of the parts of this that appeals to me. So in other words, the shapes are so pared down, but they're not flat.
No. Very.
Wonder
Yes?
what she's thinking about holding a
The
skull with
legs.
the candle.
I wish I knew more about some of the philosophical or religious underpinnings to these. I don't, but they almost seem like objects of veneration or meditation.
The skulls. Yeah.
The whole thing, the whole image. Here's another one. The hand is particularly interesting.
Wow.
See the very warm color in this and incredibly pared down form. So if you look at this woman's leg,
Yeah.
if you look at the chair, if you look at her head, there's very little going on. All of the detail is reduced to a great degree. And this very warm, reddish toned light is very appealing.
The kind of fabric, it has more detail than, it's not much, but it's more detail than we've seen in any of his. Wow.
See the child's head and the man's head all have this character of a reduction of form, a reduction of detail. It is very, very hard to paint that simply, or to reduce the drawing to that kind of simplicity. In other words, there's so much left out here.
Right.
This one is very interesting in terms of the light. In terms of the simplicity here, I would say these are almost tour de force. You can't get, in this particular direction, you can't get more simple, more essential than this. This is not the best reproduction of this painting. It's a little gray and very, maybe slightly washed out. So this is a man who's playing this musical instrument, which I think is called the hurdy-gurdy.
You're right.
The what?
It is a hurdy-gurdy.
Yeah, when you do some research, you might be able to find a better reproduction of this. If I'm right about the scale of these paintings, I would say this is probably about 60 or 70 inches high, 60 inches maybe. The compositions are relentlessly perfectionistic. In other words, he just doesn't miss.
Wow. It almost looks animated. It's so, I mean, cartoonish sort of. Maybe that's from the colors or something, but does anybody else get that feeling, or? Guess not.
It's hard to know what it's about.
Yeah, what's going on there?
Wait a minute. Let me move this around. I don't know, for some reason or other, it's getting all jiggly.
Wow.
Wow.
So one thing that he does is he uses the rectangle in a very interesting and very contemporary way. So the way the forms sit inside the rectangle is of very keen interest to him. So if you look at the space from the edges of the rectangle to the forms, to the way the image, the people are cut off in particular ways, this is quite fascinating and in some ways very modern, very anticipating a modern direction in art. So if you were to look at photography of, for instance, Edward Weston, you would see the same use of the rectangle and use of compositions like this, but Edward Weston, 20th century.
Right.
Simon, I have a question.
Yes,
Have you seen this picture?
I've seen about a third of these.
Because I would think that there would be a better way to see this man's face, because it looks very interesting.
No, I don't think that in this case, what you're saying, Lucy, I think that that's part of the painting, that you can't see his face.
Right.
In other words, everything is composed so that much of the painting is choreographed in shadow, and that his face is out of focus in shadow, because what he's doing is illuminating this man's forehead and his hands.
Right.
So he's purposefully going in and out of focus. And I don't think a better reproduction would do anything to this. This looks like a very good reproduction of this painting.
And what is the object there that makes
The object looks like some kind of spear or knife.
Right.
And I do not know, this is my weakness here. I do not know the symbolism of this or the name of the painting, but all I could tell you is,
St. Thomas. I'm looking it up. It's at St. Thomas.
yeah, all I could tell you is from my end, love at first sight. This is just stunning.
It's gorgeous.
Do you know where his
Yeah.
paintings are exhibited, Simon?
Well, I think the one earlier with the child, the woman and the child with her hand, either that one or something similar to it is at the Frick collection. The one that we began with, or the second one that looks like that, I believe is at the Metropolitan Museum, or something very close to that. Where else, I don't know. I've seen these paintings at the Louvre. Wait a minute. I've seen these paintings at the Louvre and at the National Gallery in London, maybe also the National Gallery in Washington.
Yes.
One of the things this has in common with the others, Simon, which not directly, so most of them have candles with light sources.
Yeah.
There's no candle here, but there's still a light source on his head. So the light is still streaming and he's trying to bring light into it.
Yes. Light is a big thing with this artist. So I would, from my take on this, I would say that the light is choreographed. So this is not naturalistic light.
Right.
This light is choreographed almost like it was a stage set, or almost as if you were a choreographer. So he's definitely in charge of this lighting. These are not accidental things.
What is the thing on the right side of the painting?
Man,
It's a man with a beard.
Oh, I see it now. Okay.
It's like the light on her is on her right side of her face, and it couldn't be coming from the candle.
Now, these are,
Yeah,
these, hold a second. These are some details
Right.
of some of the paintings you saw. And I think the next one might be a detail of the woman on the left.
wow.
Well,
It has a it
I-
has a
It's much more
photographic.
color
all
than,
right, so from my end, it is very hard to paint like this. It's so pared down, but is not flat.
Mm,
Okay,
Yeah.
it's not really a totally flat shape, but it's getting quite close to it.
Mm.
And
it's got a lot of depth.
it has a lot of depth, but it is also it's connecting with modernism or
Right.
a modern take on art.
What do you
It's-
mean by that exactly, if I may ask?
So it's extremely abstract, extremely shape oriented, and it relates to certain directions in abstract art. But the thing about this is that it's also figurative. It's also human. And so this type of thing appeals to me greatly because it is marrying a tradition which is figurative with another tradition which is very modern.
Mm.
And that is not so easy to do. Okay? But
Mhm.
it brings multiple audiences to this.
Simon, it almost has a photographic quality about it.
It does, but it also doesn't. I have to sort of think a little bit about why it doesn't, but let's just proceed because I'm not sure I can come up with that so quickly. But this is a detail of the painting you saw before, and you can see her hand is just incredible, this little child's hand. And
Her expression as well.
her expression. And the thing about this is that these people seem like real people. In other words, painted from life.
Yeah.
In other words, they're not made up people. They're highly individualistic, but painted from life.
Wow.
Julie, are you out there? Julie?
Yes, I am. Hi.
Do you know this artist?
No, I don't. This is my first introduction.
Good. That's great. And David Plylar, do you know this artist?
I don't. This is my introduction. Thank you.
Good. That's terrific. He's so interesting and so singular. So these are details of either paintings you saw before or details that I just thought were interesting. And he keeps this signature through 90% of his work. In a book that I have on George de la Tour, he starts out slightly differently. He starts out not in darkness like this. He does a few other works that are lit up, that are lighter, maybe have a different mood to them. Then he gets into this world and he kind of just stays with it. So in a curious way, they sit into 1593 to 1652, but they also are very contemporary, if you ask me.
Well, he really wasn't like anybody else, any peer or any contemporary in any Italian or French England.
I don't think he is
He's
actually.
very distinctive.
Very distinctive, yeah, very distinctive. Now, I was trying to think of what all these artists have in common, and one thing that I am reminded of when I just heard from Lucy is maybe what these artists have in common in the class and in all the classes is they are maybe unclassifiable, singular. And there's something appealing about that to me. So Soutine seems unclassifiable, and this artist also seems unclassifiable. I'm not totally sure on that, but I was very struck by his work from the first moment I saw it.
Do you think it's possible?
Wait, just hold on.
Sure.
Another part of this that is interesting to me is that this isn't about social situations like political situations. It's about something internal at a remove, interior, quiet, meditative, and maybe there's something that in my interior world, I find this more convincing than art that is political.
Wow.
So gorgeous.
I was just going to say, if I may, I mean, even though stylistically completely different than Rembrandt, but I think the way the fluctuation between light and dark, I don't know, I think that's really what what makes these great. And I think that's kind of something in many Rembrandts that's also kind of, lends a certain amount of drama to it. It looks nothing like a Rembrandt, but that's just, tossing an idea out there.
That's a very good point. Now I see Rita on the screen here.
Yes.
Did you know this artist before?
I do. As a matter of fact, when I was a young woman, 1973, I was in Paris, and there was a museum that devoted itself to a show of his works. It was either l'Orangerie or it was one of the museums right at the end of the Tuileries. And it was an amazing experience to see it in person. The paintings are huge. And if you think this is impressive, seeing it in person, surrounded by, I don't know how many paintings there were many. It was, the light was blinding. The light in the paintings was blinding, overwhelming.
Yeah.
Good way.
Well, that's really terrific. Do you happen to have a catalog of that?
No.
But it was in the Orangerie.
There was. There was another small museum, Jeu de Paume. There were two small museums. I don't remember which one it was, but it was an astounding exhibit.
Yeah, no, it sounds great.
You call this chiaroscuro?
Chiaroscuro.
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 Oh, look at that.
So these are sections of paintings, and
they're just
I think they're just beautiful.
Wow.
Uses a lot of skulls.
But the frame is just,
Hmm.
What's the number of skull? Oh my God, look at this guy.
Well, this is the last one in this section. I want to go on to George de la Tour.
no, that's what we're doing.
Wait a minute. Any other comments? Maybe
You want to
maybe
go to
from
Tooker.
someone that I haven't heard from. Sue, do you know this artist's work before?
No, I
No.
love it.
Oh,
I
that's
love
great.
it, as you said, on site.
That's great. That's
And
great.
because I love Caravaggio, and to me, it's very reminiscent of some of his work as well.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. Alan, you knew his work before?
Oh yeah, yes, for many years actually. I've seen the painting that's at the Met, and it really struck me as being so moody, and compared to all of the other painters of that era, it was incredibly unique. And I've also seen some of the work in some of his work in the in Paris in the Louvre.
Great compositions, all of them. A great way of seeing form that is just perfection.
Simon, could I ask, is this picture part of a larger?
I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
I was asking. I don't know what that rattling is, but
yeah, what is that?
All right, I'm gonna go on now to George Tooker. Okay, so I thought that there was a connection between George de la Tour and George Tooker, and I tried to push the connection. So if I was showing George Tooker without this idea, I would start differently. But because I sort of thought to relate it to George de la Tour, I started this way. So this is George Tooker. Okay, could I ask you to mute your speakers? Something is weird, like a scratching sound. Oh, great. So this is George Tooker, and George Tooker's dates are 1920 to 2011. So George Tooker, his paintings are done in egg tempera, and he is a singular American artist. He works in egg tempera on wood panel. In my head,
Wyatt,
a thread connects him with George de la Tour.
Someone needs to mute. There's a clanging like a cat batting a ball around.
It sounds like typing.
Yeah, could you mute?
I wish I could.
Okay, so he was part of a group of 3 artists, George Tooker, Paul Cadmus, and Jared French, and they were called Magic Realists. His work, even though you won't see it in this painting, has an alienated, distanced quality. In some instances, he is exploring apartness, isolation, possibly existentialism. I started with images which seemed to be connected with George de la Tour. Actually, these are out of chronological order, and these images appear later in his career. He uses repetition in his work. His art has a strong sense of composition and geometry. A curious combination of what you see combined with what you don't, what is unexpected, what takes you away, poetic and moody. So many of these paintings are on the small side. So this painting, I would guess, is about 20 inches high. Oh, one more thing about this particular painting. If you look at the hand, you could sense a cousinship with George de la Tour. And the woman in this is, I think, a kind of combination of George Tooker's sister and a self-portrait. So the egg temper is used, and many, many layers of tone. So this also is perhaps 20 inches high. And so here, again, a fantastic composition, but here you're getting into something that is a little spooky and unearthly.
It's kind of surreal.
And surreal, and definitely surreal. I think it's called The Visit.
Another thing about his paintings is that the people seem enclosed.
Yes, I agree. Who said that?
Me, Kathleen.
Kathleen, yes, I agree totally.
This reminds me of that painter who I think was painting about World War II, and he had those faces staring out. Was it in a subway station or something?
Yes, that's him.
Oh, it's him.
Yeah, we'll get to that one. That's him. Yeah. Okay, let me keep going. Now, if you think back to the George de la Tour, and then you look at this, you can see that the people in this painting are not painted from life, that they are composites or made up or have some connection with some people, but are they're not as singular as George de la Tour, but there's some influence, some connection. But the connection is also in the light and the abstraction, shape abstraction.
George Tooker seems to use the lanterns in the way that de la Tour used candles.
Yes,
and there's a similar kind of sense of some kind of ritual or spiritual connection.
Yes, terrific. I agree entirely. So this painting probably is like 20 inches or 24 inches or 18 by 20, some small, and it's composed in a very similar way to George de la Tour. So the rectangle plays a very important part of this painting. The way the people are cut off by this rectangle, and the way empty blank shapes take part in the painting. So for instance, the upper left-hand shape is very interesting, the back of this mirror or book that they're looking at, and some play on youth and old age. So this painting is actually earlier than the paintings we've seen, but I put those paintings first. So if I hadn't started with George de la Tour, if I was just talking about George Tooker, I would have started here. So this painting, I think, is owned by the Metropolitan Museum, and I believe that it's in their permanent collection, which means that it's usually up. I've seen this painting there, and it's surprisingly small. It's like maybe 24 or 26 inches wide. It's not large, maybe 30 inches wide. It's not large at all. Notice the repetition of shapes and forms. Like he paints the man standing, the same man standing, the same man standing. The eyes behind the window, again, 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 again. And I think the origin of this painting had to do with a trip that George took to the Motor Vehicle Bureau. I read about this, and I think I might have even spoken with him about this. But a trip to the Motor Vehicle Bureau, and it's kind of funny, but the painting is not funny. It's not funny at all, and I think this is spectacular. This one, I think this is just really amazing.
It's almost Kafkaesque.
Yes, yes, and oh, let me go back. It's very, as I said about the George de la Tour, it's very human, but also very modern and modernist and contemporary. And the angst or the anxiety that's going on here is just something else. This painting and the painting that Sue that you were referring to are, if not masterpieces, very close to being them. They're that singular. Again, this is egg tempera, many, many layers of egg tempera. So egg tempera is more matte than oil. It's a cross between like fresco and oil paint. Closer to oil paint, but very matte. And sorry, someone wanted to say something? Okay, let me just keep going. Okay. This painting and the one we just saw, which I think is called the Government Bureau, and the one of the subway, are like a trio, a triptych of images that have to do with alienation and apartness.
Wow, sure.
So this is the painting that Sue referred to.
Yeah.
Now this painting is much smaller than you would think. This whole painting is 36 inches wide. I think the height of the painting is maybe 18 inches.
Wow.
And if you see this painting in person, you're just stunned at how small it is. So now, in terms of repetition and apartness, repetition and apartness, you have a whole scenario going on here, going all the way back to the woman, all the way in the middle, way back.
Mm-hmm.
So he starts with something that he has seen
Right.
and an architectural format, and he takes this into some other world that is very spatial. And within the space is the psychology.
They're very unsettling. I'm getting uncomfortable looking at it.
Yes,
there's
I think it is very unsettling.
dystopian quality to it.
Yeah, I think it's very unsettling, but brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Very claustrophobic.
Yes, yes.
I think, I mean, does the sort of haggard-looking guy behind the bars, you know, about 4/5 of the way to the right,
Yes,
that
yes.
just seems like it's out of place. Not only because he's, you know,
Dressed differently.
sluggish, but even the way it's painted, it just doesn't seem as, I don't know, simple, or it just seems out of place in style, you know, also, as well as out of place because he's a bum or he's something different. I don't know, does anyone
Maybe.
else
Yeah, maybe,
feel that
but
way?
yeah, maybe, but boy, this is some painting.
Yeah.
I'll take it. I'll take it. Here's a detail of the painting.
Oh.
Simon, is
So
this?
wait a
Edna
minute,
Whitney?
wait a minute. Just stop. Let me go back. So this is a detail going right down the middle.
Hmm.
Now, here's a point that is worth making. Rendering means how well you do something, how good your hand is, how well you can get the forms to be realized, how well you can convince the viewer of the volume, the turn. So for some of you who have studied art and figurative art, that's a nice thing to study, a nice goal. But really, art goes well past rendering, and really good art goes far past rendering. So this art is well past the reality, the ability to create this reality, because he's also giving you a psychological underpinning to it. This is self-portrait of George Tooker, and this painting is one of the few paintings that he does from life. Okay. So you can see in these paintings that are going to be coming, the way the shapes engage within this rectangle.
This is very small. Is this a very small painting, Simon?
I don't know, but I don't think so.
Okay.
I really don't think so. I think his paintings are usually about 18 or 20 inches. If by small you mean 8 inches, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
Sometimes he reminds me of Alan Flatus.
Of who? Who?
Alan Flatus, I think it is, Flatus. He's a Contemporary.
Latus?
Yes.
I don't know that artist. I'll have to look it up. Okay. But let me just keep going.
Yeah. Ugh. What is it?
Good question.
Whoa.
I'm going to guess about 20 inches high, maybe 24, but something like that.
I remember this. Yeah. The figure behind the drape.
It's after yoga. They're not taking a smoke.
Really? Oh. Again, repetitive.
He is really one of my favorite. He's not alive now. He's one of my favorite contemporary artists.
Right.
And to me, he brings a certain tradition in art, in figurative art, and yet something very contemporary, very modern, and very of this moment.
Mm. Very disturbing.
Do any of these paintings have names?
Yes, they all have names, but I don't have the names. And of the books on his work, a book by a writer named Thomas Garver is one that I would recommend. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. I just want to finish this.
Mm-hmm. Huh. Wow.
Jeez.
He was a little alienated, wasn't he?
Wow.
Ooh.
See, again, think of how he uses this rectangle and how the use of this shape is almost part of the painting. And that type of thing I connect with photography or with motion pictures or mainly with photography, the way photography makes use of that rectangle.
Wow.
Now, some of these works to me seem to have an almost Southern or even Mexican quality about them.
Mexican, yeah. I agree, Mexican.
Where did George Tooker live? Was he a New Yorker?
He lived in Brooklyn, and then he left Brooklyn and lived most of his life in Vermont.
And what years was he around again? Sorry, Simon?
George Tooker, 1920 to 2011.
91.
Wait a minute, just hold on.
Mm.
Holy crap.
Which one are you looking at?
It's amazing. I'm not sure if I can even say it right, but how there's so much detail, but just in isolated spots. So it still has this kind of, soft, calm effect. But
Well, there's more emotion there than.
But I mean, look at the detail in her hair. And his hair too, but still somehow you feel a painting is, not photorealistic. He seems to know where to put the detail to still get that sort of soft effect.
Let me see if I have a few more. Hold on, let me see if I have a few more.
Okay. Ooh. Wow.
Wow. And who owns most of his work? Where might we see it?
Well, the two that I mentioned, this painting of the subway is owned by the Whitney Museum, and I believe that that's part of their permanent collection. So if you visit the Whitney, you can go up to one of the top floors, and I think it's usually on display. Or you could call in advance to see if it is on display. And the one at the Metropolitan Museum is called the Government Bureau. And that's, again, usually on display, but you should call first if that's what you are keen on seeing.
The one in the Whitney is definitely on display.
Oh, okay.
So Simon, how does he paint this detail, but still it still feels soft. I mean, and not out of focus, but it's not crisp. I don't know what technique that is.
I don't know if it has a name. I don't.
Yeah.
So this last one is another version of the one we saw before. It's not the same painting. It's a different painting. I think the one before is called Visit 1, and this is called Visit 2. I thought you might find something I had to experience with George Tooker of interest. Just hold on a second. Hold on. So I'm going to leave this on while I describe this to you. And after I finish, this is the class. Don't forget, next week we don't have a class. So as I told you, I was very responsive to his work. Really thought very highly of it. And in about late 1980s or 1990, a book was coming out on my work, and I was trying to help design the book and working on a lot of getting all the pictures together and trying to think about it and so forth, spending a lot of mental energy on this. It was very exciting, a lot of different phone calls and very compelling period of time. You want to get everything right. You want to make the presentation right. this is the book that has an African-American woman sleeping on the cover. So one day, the phone rang. I pick up the phone and I say, who is it? And this man says, this is George Tooker. Okay. So I said, what? What? So he said, this is George Tooker. Now I'm telling you this not to say something about myself, but to say something about him and about it's not about me. It's about something else. So I say, really? I say, really? And he said, yes, really. So I said, and he speaks in a very clipped kind of no accent, maybe slightly prep school manner, but no accent, very clear. And I am very agitated. I am very worked up hearing his voice on the phone. So I said to him, oh, this is amazing. Now, it also felt to me like someone was calling me from Pluto or Mars, because that's what his work looks like to me. Like he's comes from Pluto or Mars, and he was calling my number. So I said to him, you know, I am so amazed that you've called. I said, there are so many things I'd like to ask you. So, yeah, now you have to understand, on my desk, there are all these photographs, pictures, mock-ups for a book, and the book that his work by Thomas Garver is right in front of me. Is the book that I recommend for his work is right in front of me. And so I say, there are so many things that I'd like to ask you. And so he says to me, like what? So I said, well, for instance, you have in your chronology, in your book, that you went to Harvard. So I said, that struck me as very interesting. So he says to me, well, Simon, did you go to Harvard? So I said, no. So he said, well, it really wasn't the best school for an artist. I didn't want to go to Harvard. I wanted to go to Mexico. Okay. But my family sent me there and I had to go there, etc., etc. Okay. So I'm really worked up. So I said to him, well, there's one more thing that and this is really true. Okay, this is a whole true story, but it's just I love teaching this class or presenting this class, so I like showing his work, and it made me think of this interaction. So I said to him, you know, there's one more thing in your chronology. It says that on this and this date, you met Christopher something or other, and then 20, 25 years later or 30 years later, it says Christopher so-and-so passed away. So he said, yes, well, why is that interesting? So I said, well, I mean, usually people don't write something like that. Okay, it's all kind of private. And he said, well, it happened. It was important. It was something he felt to write down. So I said, well, I mean, you know, it just struck me as interesting and it stayed with me. And so, of course, I'm speaking to someone who's projecting from another planet. So he didn't get the things that I was saying. He didn't respond. Then all of a sudden it occurred to me, where is he calling from? So I said to him, George, I never spoke to him before. I never even met him. So I said to him, George, where are you calling from? So he said, Vermont. I'm calling from Vermont. Now we've gone on for like 15 or 20 minutes with my questions. Those were two of them. And then it occurred to me, I wonder why he called. Right? So I said to him, you know, I have to ask you this. I mean, this sounds crazy, but here I've mentioned all these different things, and I want you to know I'm working on this book, and your book is right in front of me, and you call, and it feels like you're calling from another world. How come you thought to call? Okay. So this is what he said. He said, Simon, there's something I've been meaning to tell you for a long time. And it is how very much I like your work.
Wow.
Wow.
Now, I'm not telling you this for me. It's like, it's very amazing for someone to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
To pick up the phone and make a call like that.
Right.
And it was really stirring. And especially since he's calling from Pluto. They don't even have phones there. So I leave you with that. And this has been a lovely evening. And thank you. Okay.
Oh, are we done?
You're done. This is it.
Oh.
Anyway, thank you. Thank you. We'll see you.
Thank
I'll see
you
you
so
in 2
much.
weeks. I'll see you in 2
See you in
weeks.
2 weeks.
Bye,
Okay.
Simon. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Take care of
Simon.
yourself.
Beautiful
Thank
work.
you.
Take care of
Holidays.
yourself.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Simon, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Simon, this is Ron in Washington.
Yes.
What happened is I did not have the split screen, so I tried to restart Zoom with the hope that rebooting it would get me into the right vibe.
Right.
What I ended up with was the ability to hear you, but it kept the box just said connecting, but for an hour.
I'm so sorry.
That happened to me also, Ron, once, and I can't remember exactly how. You futz around with, if you go to the Zoom, I don't know if you're on a Mac, but if you have the that row of icons, if you click on the Zoom icon there, and you just sort of futz around with that, it brings the picture back. I've lost minutes because of that, and it's pretty frustrating.
I've never had that problem, but what I did do was simply go on the web and bring up the multiple images that are available there. I sort of had a sense of which ones you're looking at, except for the Delator. So that worked fine. But what is our assignment for next time?
No, your assignment will be for April 19th, which would be to compare the work of two of these artists.
Okay, so we're going to go through.
We're going to go through George 3 and George 4.
Okay, before we do the other.
Yeah. So you could do these two, or you could do the next two, however you want. But I'll also send you tomorrow a link to the recording.
That's great. I'll be happy to look at that. I was so impressed with Tooker. I think I first really got to see his work up close at the Tara Museum in Chicago years ago.
Oh.
And they are such exquisite, almost miniatures in the way they're painted. They're just stunning pieces of craftsmanship as well as everything else. The Delator I've seen a lot of, and they're very arresting. They had a wonderful show at the National Gallery of these very detailed Vermeer period Dutch and Flemish painters.
Yes.
With these genre scenes, which are very reminiscent of the Delator, but in a kind of different vein. They're showing opulence. Delator has the ability to have opulent items in his paintings, but they serve as kind of still lives. It's great choice, Simon. Really very, very interesting, and thank you.
Yes, thank you. Simon, great
Thanks.
stuff.
Have a great
Thanks.
See you in 2 weeks.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
okay,
Bye.
okay, bye-bye.
Simon,
Yeah,
Simon, was that the book you were talking about, the University of Arkansas book?
yes, that's
Okay,
right.
we
That's
got
right.
it.
That's right. Yeah, it's quite a story. Quite a story.
Yeah,
Yeah. I never spoken to him before.
yeah, I just called up out of the blue.
Yeah. I want to ask Renee a question, but nice seeing you tonight.
Yeah, well, it was nice to be there.
Okay. Take care. Send
Okay.
my regards.
I will tell Ben.
Said her right hand is now stronger than her left.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah. What are we saying now? Where is it? This isn't it. Are we still in swing share?
Oh, recording. Yeah.